series of teachings with Tupten Kungaling Center. Very honored to introduce Geshe-la. Thank you, Geshe-la, for agreeing to this series of 6 Wednesdays to teach us the 3 principal aspects of the path. And for those of you who haven't met Geshe-la before, Geshe-la was born in Nepal. And since he was a little boy, he joined Kopan Monastery, where he received teachings by Lama Tupten Yeshi and Lama Zopa Rinpoche and other high lamas. And Geshe-la was able to continue his education at Sarah J. Monastic University, where he received his Geshe degree in the year 2000. And since 2001, he's been based mainly in the US, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the center there, Tupten Norbuling. And Geshe-la also travels around the globe to other FPMT centers to teach. So once again, Geshe-la, thank you so much. We're very honored and grateful to have you for 6 Wednesdays on these precious teachings of the 3 principal aspects of the path. So Geshe-la, I don't know if you want to start with setting a motivation first, or we go directly to the prayers.
Maybe I will start with the motivations. Okay. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining, taking your precious time, making the effort. So, so I would like to start with the motivations, trying to generate good motivation. And before that, to quiet and calm our mind, we spend a few moments to watch our breath mindfully. Then we can try to cultivate and generate good intention, motivation by thinking. May us coming here together and giving our precious time, listening and engaging in discussion and reflections. Be cause and conditions to generate the renunciations, the bodhicitta, and wisdom realizing emptiness within the mind stream of oneself and all sentient beings. And may it be cause and condition to achieve fully awakened state, so we can be most and greatest help and benefit to not just few sentient beings, but each and every sentient beings. In most skillful way, in the most beneficial way. And may we be able to apply whatever we learn into our everyday life as much as possible. Okay. So do you want to share the, yeah. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodan soke sonam na changchu padu dane kya dagi shoshe kibe sonam dola tenje sangye doba. Sangye chodan soke sonam na changchu padu dane dagi shoshe kibe sonam dola tenje sangye doba. Sa shibe ki chon shin me to ta ra li shi yin de gen ba de sang ge shin do mi de u wa yogun namada shin chuparajo idam guru rana mandala niyatayami. Okay. So throughout this next 6 sessions on Wednesday, we are going to discuss on 3 principal aspects of the path by following particular texts composed by our founder, Lama Tsongkhapa, and he wrote that to his nephew, so his nephew was going to engage in a practice, a deep practice, and he was very far away. And so he wrote a letter asking for instructions for his practice, and to answer that his request, Lama Tsongkhapa wrote this very in terms of words, it's very short, but in terms of the subjects, it summarized whole Buddha's teachings, and so that is known as the 3 principal aspects of the path. So that is what we are going to be discussing. And the 3 principal aspects of the path, which are the renunciation, the bodhicitta, and wisdom relies on the emptiness, are the very path all the Buddhas has relied on to achieve their enlightenment. The past Buddha, the present Buddha, all the future Buddhas will also achieve enlightenment by actualizing or by generating those 3 principal aspects of the path. And so after Buddha achieved enlightenment, to help and benefit other sentient beings, to guide, to lead, Buddha taught so many different teachings, so many different, 3 baskets of the teachings, so many teachings over more than 45 years, in order to guide, and help sentient beings to achieve their own highest potential, the fully awakened state, and so, but when we summarize all those different teachings that they are within the more than 100 volume of sutras, they all can kind of, when you condense them, if you take the essence from those, then it all contained within the lamrim, all the meaning of all teaching contained within the lamrim, the stages of the path. The essence of the very essence of the lamrim is the 3 principal aspects of path, So the Lamrim and three principal aspects of path are same, but the way is presented slightly different. In Lamrim, it is presented from the point of view of like the practice of small scope, middle scope, and great scope. Here is presented as all the practice that contained within the practice of renunciation, practice of the bodhicitta mind, and the practice of the wisdom. And so, so it's the very three principal aspects of the path is the very heart of the bodhisattva's practice. And so, as it is mentioned in many of the teachings, without renunciations, no matter, as Lam Tsongkhapa explained in Lamrim, the great Lamrim, as well as many other great teachers explain, without the renunciations, then no matter what kind of virtues we create, no matter what kind of virtue we engage into, they do not become cause to enlightenment. It only becomes cause of, the pleasure within the samsara grams. It doesn't become cause to be free from the samsara. From the whatever virtue we create, we experience the good result of that, but within the context of samsara, and without the bodhicitta mind, then no matter what virtues we create, through body, speech, and mind, they do not become cause to enlightenment, cause to fully enlightenment. It doesn't become cause to enlightenment. And without the wisdom, realizing emptiness, no matter what practice we do, it doesn't become antidote towards the samsara, the root of the samsara, the ignorance. And so therefore, the three principal aspects of the path is so crucial, so crucial. Whether we engage in the Suttarayana, whether we engage in the Vajrayana, without the foundation of three principal aspects of path, then, it is like trying to build a house without the foundations, unstable. So even we do whatever practice we do, the practice does not become so stable and so effective because we don't have good foundations of, and so whatever practice we do to become both practice to become powerful, effective, something that can change and transform our mind and our heart, without the three principal aspects of path is extremely difficult. And so therefore, as Lama Tsongkhapa said, as Paponga Rinpoche said, as all the great masters says, we should not think the three principal aspects of path is for the very beginner. That's something that I have already heard before, something that I have practiced before, and thinking, I must be studying more, something new, more advanced, more profound. I should practice, because if you don't have that strong foundation of that three principles of path, then all other practice is, not so profound and effective. But when you have this as a foundation, on the basis of this as a foundation, then when we do other practices, more advanced practice, whether it is the Vajrayana, tantric practice, or all others, then those practices become more beneficial, more effective, more profoundness. And what makes it profound is because of that foundations, that you have the good foundations, It is like, one of the Katamba masters, asked one of his, and the great Katamba master, his disciple, what will you prepare, would you prepare the practice of the Lamrim, three principal aspect of path, or would you prepare or realizations, or would you prepare to have a, clairvoyance, or to be able to levitate, through your practice of wind energy and chakra and so forth, or, such as the 8 accomplished, whether you can make yourself invisible, that you can go under, through your certain practice, that you can become invisible and so forth, and the other Kadamba master says, or great concentrations, that, extremely concentration, no matter how much big noise someone make you, your concentration not disturbed. And he said, I will prepare to forget about realization of the lumbering or three principal expect the path. Even I have just a, deep aspiration for that, I will prepare that compared to all other practice, and such is having understood the importance that clearly shows that master has understood the very essential point of all the teachings, all the dharmas, the essence of the dharma, the essence of all the practice. So that is the three principles. That is why three principal aspect of the path is so crucial and important, which is the very foundation of all the practices, sutra and tantra practices. And so that is that we are going to discuss. So I hope you have downloaded the text. Okay, so you can, as I read through, so you can follow, the root text, And again, I think this is one of the texts that in prayer that we often recite as well, So then definitely it helps when we have some commentary and some more understanding of what we are reciting, and so that we can contemplate while we recite, that we can meditate and contemplate on the meaning of those words, not just reciting the words, but actually those texts are not just a prayer, they are tools for us to meditate and to contemplate, and tools. And so by using those texts, so we contemplate on the meaning of that, we meditate on the meaning of that. And so that is the purpose of those texts. And so first, it starts with expressing homage, so that there is at the very beginning of most of the text, it starts with prostrating or bowing or paying homage to one of the holy object. In some of the texts, they pay homage to, like Chandrakiri in his middle way, supplementary middle way, he pay homage to the great compassions. Maitreya in clear, the ornament of clear realization, then he pay homage to the the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the Arhats, and so in some other texts, they pay homage to the particular deity and so forth. Here you see Lam Tsongkhapa at the very beginning, he pay homage to the gurus. Okay, so here is, I bow down to my perfect gurus. So here he pay homage to the gurus. And here when we say gurus, he's referring to all the lineage gurus, the lineage guru of profound lineage and extensive lineage, as well as the blessing lineage. So paying homage to all the lineage guru, starting from the Buddha Shakyamuni, and that has been passed all those different, all those teachings, the profound teaching and of the wisdom and extensive teaching on the method, all those who have been passed from one teacher to another teachers, so all those lineage gurus until your root gurus. And especially here, Lama Tsongkhapa paying homage to his root gurus, and particularly Manjushri. It is said, Lama Tsongkhapa received these very teachings, three principal aspects of the path, from Manjushri directly. It is mentioned, Lama Tsongkhapa has a direct. At the very beginning, he didn't have a direct connection to Manjushri himself, but one of his teachers, Lama Umaba from past karma, from connections, from very young age, he had a connection to Manjushri. It is said that when he was young and he was looking after the animals, shepherd, going into the forest, he kind of, fall asleep or a little bit kind of fainted, and then he saw Manjushri, and since then he has a direct connection to Manjushri. He can see and receive he can interact, At the very beginning, Lama Tsongkhapa interacted with the Manjushri through his Lama, when he had some cautions, when he had certain points that he was not clear, and certain important cautions he used to ask through his teachers. Eventually, later, he was able to have access directly himself. And it is said, that when you have visions of the deities, there are many different ways that someone can have visions. Some people, they have interactions through dreams. In dream, the deity appears. In the dream, they ask questions and answer back. They have interactions. In some cases, is in your meditation experience, in your meditation. So you are not in dream, but in your meditations, then you are able to kind of have, in your meditation, then you have the appearance of the deity in your meditations, and then you are able to again have a connections and interactions. And then there are some who are able to have a direct connection, like seeing person to person with the eye consciousness, and it is said Lama Tsongkhapa actually had that connections that he was able to see later, eye to eye, and most of the lot of critical points that he asked Manjushri, even in terms of when he went to the retreat and asking whether he should go by himself or whether he should take some of the students, and how many students he should take, and all of those given by the Manjushri's advice. He took 8 of them together with him, 8 disciples, under the guidance of the Manjushri. So anyway, so therefore, when you pay homage to the gurus, also is paying homage to the Manjushri as well, because that is one of his guru, not in a person, but one of his main gurus. And also the reason why Lama Tsongkhapa pay homage to the guru at the very beginning is to emphasize the importance of relying on guru correctly and properly. Like in Lamrim, at the very beginning, it starts with guru devotions, correctly and properly relying on the gurus. And so because, as Lama Tsongkhapa himself said in a, Lamrim, the root of all the realizations is relying correctly to the guru. Everything starts from there. When you have a good, soil of guru devotions, then all other plants of realizations will grow. Without that good soil of guru devotion, of correctly relying, then it's difficult to have any realizations. The plant growing, the plant of realization to grow, and there are many stories, of great teachers, lamas, where they were meditating, where they were practicing, but they they were having a difficulty to make any progress or to have any realization. There is something that kind of blocked them from having any kind of further progress. And once they were able to have a stronger Guru devotion, then suddenly they started to make huge progress, big jump, big progress in their path. It is also said, Sakya Pandita, one of the great masters, and he was serving one of his, it was his relative, I think Sakya Kunga Rinchen, Kunga Rinchen or Kunga Gelsen. I think it's Kunga Gelsen, So he was taking care of Sakya Kunga Rinchen, but at the very beginning, he didn't have the devotions, because it was his, uncle, so he always looked him as an uncle. He never kind of looked as his guru and kind of treat him as a guru, And once I think he asked his uncle, why I'm having this difficulty of making any progress in my spiritual path, because he even though he's practicing, even though he's meditating, contemplating, and doing all practice, still he seemed to struggles. And then he said, even though he was his guru, but he never looked him as a guru and treat him as a guru, but as an uncle. And so then once he explained that, and then he was able to kind of, change his mind, then instead of treating him as an uncle, he treated as a guru and relying properly, correctly, and then he started to have a realization. And so there are many stories about that, many stories about that. It is clearly mentioned, Milarepa was able to make such a huge progress to be able to achieve enlightenment in one lifetime because of his incredible devotions, incredible Guru devotion to the Marva, incredible, unshakable, And same with Naropa, Telopa, Naropa again, even though he was already great masters from the Nalanda, great scholars, great scholars, great philosopher, great masters, but again, he had even though he has all this understanding, all this knowledge, all this intellectual understanding, intellectual, but in terms of spiritual realizations, he was again having some struggles, difficulties. And then by relying on the Telopa and with his devotions, with that kind of strong Guru devotions, then again, things started to shift. Things started to shift in terms of cultivating realizations. And so therefore, because of importance of that, here Lama Tsongkhapa at the very beginning, he paid homage to the gurus, because that is very important part of our practice. That is one of the very important part of our practice. When you have a strong, unshakable, correct devotions and rely correctly, then things started to make shift, and then we started to there's something that changed in your heart, mind, and that allow for your other realization to arise. So that is, and the next is promise to compose, The essential meaning of the Victorious One's teachings. So that one, there are two different ways of explaining it, okay? One way of explaining is with each of the lines, then it explains all three principal expressions. So the essential meaning of the Victorious One teaching, that is the renunciations, okay? Because all the Buddha's teachings are given for the the sentient beings or disciple to achieve nirvana. Okay. And to achieve nirvana, the essence to achieve nirvana is the renunciation. Without the renunciations, one cannot achieve the nirvana, whether it is an individual nirvana or it is the Buddhahood, the fully enlightened nirvana, non-abiding nirvana. So therefore, essential meaning of the victorious one, so that is the renunciations, is the very essence of the Buddha's teachings, because all the Buddha's teachings were given as a way to achieve enlightenment, and the renunciations is key to that. The path praised by the holy victorious and their children. So that one explained the bodhicitta. Okay, the bodhicitta is praised by all the Buddhas, and their children, the bodhisattvas, as the best of all the practice, of all the teachings. And it is the very heart of the Buddha's and bodhisattvas practice. It is the very heart, is like the very life force of the Buddha's or the bodhisattvas practice. The bodhisattva practice is the very life force, is the very essence of all the Buddha's bodhisattvas practice. So that is the path praised by all the victorious and their children. The gateway of the fortunate one desiring liberation, that is the wisdom, realizing the emptiness, the view, the emptiness. Because in order those who wish to achieve liberations, we need to have the wisdom realizing emptiness. Without the wisdom realizing emptiness, one cannot cut the root of the samsara and the sufferings. In order to free from the samsara and all the suffering and to achieve liberations, then we will have to destroy and cut the very root of all the delusion, all the samsara and the suffering, which is the contaminated karma and the delusions. And to eradicate the delusions, we have to cut the very root of all the delusion, that is fundamental ignorance. And in order to cut the fundamental ignorance, then we need the wisdom realizing the view or the emptiness. And that is the gateway to the fortunate one who desired liberation. So with that, so it explained. So why and this I shall try to explain as much as I can. And so here, Lama Tsongkhapa, in one way, he's being very humble. Humility, it shows. I'm going to try as much as I can. He's not saying that I know everything and I'm going to explain so well. Even though he was great scholar, great master, and who is writing with his own direct realization and experience, but that is showing that. Another way of explaining that is try to explain as much as I can. What it means is, he's going to explain all the Buddha's essential point of all the Buddha's teachings in a very short, few words, as much as he can. Do you get it? So what it means is, the Buddha's teaching is very profound. So much. It is said Tibetan has not been able to translate all the Buddha's teachings. But from what they have translated, just what they have translated is more than 100 volumes. Each volume has 400 to 600 pages. That much is there. So that much is there. And then if you talk about the great Indian Pandit or master who came after Buddhas, and their writings, the commentaries by the great Indian masters, again, there were more than 200 volumes that has been translated in Tibetan. Again, so many of them have not been able to translate it. So it just shows how much there is. So here Lama Tsongkhapa was saying, there is so much, but he is kind of contains them by taking the main essence from all these teachings and trying to explain them, all of them, within the very short, with a very few words. And so he's going to try to do that. So that is one way of explaining, understanding this verse of that last meaning, okay? So that is one way of understanding. So that with that, then it shows what he's going to explain. Even with the promise to compose, though he laid down what he's going to talk about. It's going to be those three principal aspects of the path. Also, we can also understand, take all three principal aspects of the path, renunciation, bodhicitta, and the wisdom, realizing the emptiness. All of them are essential meaning of all the victorious teachings. They all are the path praised by the all holy victorious and their children, and all three of them are the gateway of the fortunate one desiring liberations. So we can either understand each line with each of those three principal aspects of path, or we can see all three of them as each of them. So that is okay. So then pursuing to listen, okay. Those who are not attached to the pleasure of cyclic existence, the samsara, and who start to make freedom endowment meaningful. So, those who are, done with the samsara, seeing, samsara is undesirable. Samsara is full of problems, never-ending problems. Samsara is, even though sometimes it look good, sometimes even though it feel is not bad, then suddenly it stuck you back. Suddenly it's stuck, and then come to realize, oh, life is not as easy, as good as I thought. Sometimes when things are going well, we forget that is samsara. Oh, it feels like we are not more in samsara. Life seems just great, fine. Just feel like, what is Buddha talking about? Why all these teachers telling about all these teaching telling about samsara is suffering, samsara is miserable, samsara. We started to think, what are they talking about? It's not so bad, life is good. Don't we feel that sometimes? Until something stuck, suddenly things happens, physically, emotionally, in a relationship, in so many our workplaces with the friends, families, and so many things, and then we begin to understand, wow, that is what it means. That's what it means, So since we don't have realization at the moment, these teachings become just not so experiential, so it is just a word, it is we keep on hearing it, but it is not a personal experience, but so that is through practice, then it become experiential, personal experiences. And when you see that, when you feel that, then you have a strong wish to, there's no way other than, make this precious human life, utilize this precious human life to free from the samsara and the cause of samsara, There's no other, the best way to utilize our precious human life and not waste is to direct all our energy, resources to free from the samsara and its causes, because it is so undesirable, So for those who want to make, so who wish to have that kind of desire and who start to make freedom and endowment meaningful this precious human life, who entrust themselves to the path, listen to the victorious ones, you fortunate one, listen with the calm mind, So again, even in that, we can understand three principal aspects of path, one way of understanding. Those who are not attached to the pleasure of cycling or samsara, it explains the renunciations, okay? Because renunciation, turning away your mind from the samsara and samsaric pleasure, okay? And not being attached to it. And who start to make freedom and endowment meaningful is the practice of bodhicitta. When you practice the bodhicitta, then your life becomes meaningful. Your practice becomes meaningful. There's nothing more better way to make meaningful your life meaningful than actually engage in the practice of the bodhicitta by cultivating the bodhicitta and by practicing bodhicitta. So, and who entrust themselves to the path pleasing the victory ones, and that is again the view or the wisdom realizing the emptiness, and again, because that wisdom and that view, the view and the wisdom realizing that view is the path that pleases to the victorious ones, because that is the key to liberate from all the suffering and cause of suffering, and so therefore, those who wish to cultivate the renunciation and bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness in order to fulfill the higher purpose of all sentient beings and oneself, in order to liberate oneself and all sentient beings from all the suffering and cause of suffering. Those who wish, in order to do that, those who wish to cultivate those three principles of path, then Lama Tsongkhapa was saying he's going to explain those as much as he can. Therefore, fortunate one, listen with a calm mind. So here is, calm mind or open mind. Maybe open mind might be better, with an open and joyful mind, So here it explains how to listen correctly, properly. When we listen to the Dharma, when we listen to the teachings, how to listen correctly and correctly, it is explained, when we listen to the teachings, we should be free from three faults. One of them is, that while our body is here, your mind is not here. Your mind is all over the world, While you are here, your mind is thinking of cooking, or if you have already eaten, maybe about thinking about tomorrow, So your mind is already somewhere. Body is here, your mind is not there. So it is like, the bucket being upside down. So no matter how much you put water, it doesn't go inside. So you are hearing something, but it doesn't go inside you because your mind is not attentive. Your mind is somewhere else. That's one of the faults. Sometimes one of the online or Zoom is, in one way, is great. Even in those difficult times, it allows us to have such opportunity. But in another way, you can just switch off your video and you can be doing something else, in the kitchen, cooking it, cleaning, or making a call, sending a text, whatever, So actually, you are not fully there. You are not attentive and fully there. And therefore, we don't sing. We don't really get fully. That is one of the things. Then other fault is, even though the bucket is on the right side, not upside down, but downside up, what you call, how do you go upside down and
Right side up?
right side up? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, right side up. But if there is a hole, then even you pour is, it doesn't stay in. It goes. And sometimes you are listening it. Maybe you are not even, you have your body is there, your mind is listening it, but not fully attentive, not 100% attentive. So you hear from here, but you forget from here, And by the time we finish a class, there was something important point he made, but now I don't remember, Oh, there was something that I felt it was helpful, but now I don't remember, So now it's gone, like that hole, It doesn't really stay because while we are listening, but we are not 100% there, Our mind was little attentive, but not fully attentive, not fully there, And so that can be like that. And then the other is, while we listen it, while we don't forget it, but then maybe if we listen with the wrong motivations, then again, that pollute. And therefore, then the listening to the teaching does not become as pure as it can be. So it's like a container that is dirty, and you put water, you cannot drink it, because of the container is dirty. So therefore, our intention, wrong intentions, negative intention, listening, then again, when we listen that, then it doesn't really, you are hearing everything, you are able to understand and feel all, but it just become dry word. Do you get it? It's like a dry word. It doesn't really touch your heart, your mind. It doesn't really kind of, you don't get the feelings, some kind of transformations. It is just like receiving informations, It doesn't really transform your heart, But when you listen to good intention, every word, it starts to sink. It started to sink in our heart, in our mind. And when it sinks, then it becomes really beneficial, really meaningful, listen to the Dharma, So that is, and then there are 6 ways of kind of, having a right thoughts or intention when you're listening, thinking I'm kind of, as you are the patients, as the Dharma, as the medicines, the teachers, as like the doctors, and then by practicing the teaching Dharma, whatever we are studying, learning, listening, as a way to cure the sickness of the delusions, the afflictive emotions, and then having a strong to the holy beings, have to the Buddhas, regarding them as holy beings, and then the wish, the desire to flourish this Dharma, the teachings, so with that kind of thought. And most important, when we listen to the teachings, Dharma, as it is said in Sutra, as Buddha said, and one of the things is that we have to be unbiased. Our mind has to be unbiased. Listen with unbiased mind. Okay? That is one thing. Your mind being totally clean without being biased. And even you are not biased, your mind is clean, totally, even unbiased, but you need to have the intelligence, the wisdom, to be able to use your wisdom and intelligence. So to know that, if the teacher make a mistake, you are able to kind of, with your wisdom and intelligence, you are able to know it was a mistake, If you don't have that, then if teachers make mistakes, you think that is true. Believe that. That can be, whatever the teacher says, whatever the teaching said, then we believe, then again, and sometimes you see, sometimes I notice, even some teachers, what they meant to say something, but it comes something in there, sometimes we do that, And so it can have that's just the opposite. Like, do you see, like in Nepal and India, sometimes there is a sign, no P, and someone erase the no, then it is a P, So it is saying someone erase the no, and then it is saying you can P there, for example, or no garbage. And then someone erase the no, and then it become garbage, throw garbage. So it's similar like that. Sometimes someone might make not intentionally, but sometimes, and sometimes I see that. And so that can have but if you use your wisdom, intelligence, you say, oh, that is, he meant to say this, or she meant to say that, and so you don't get misled. So you need to have that wisdom. And thirdly, listening with an open mind, and joyful mind, open and joyful mind, that is very important. If we listen with the open mind, we can get a lot. But if we, sometimes we already made our mind, we already decided mind, and so then, we don't get everything because our mind is already closed to a certain degree. So, when it comes to certain points, when it comes to certain subjects, sometimes we have already made up our mind. And when we have already made our mind is already been closed. So your mind is not open. And even there is a new informations, helpful informations, meaningful information, we cannot get it because our mind's totally not totally open. So that is how to listen the teachings, okay? So that is where it says listen with a calm mind, open mind, joyfulness, okay? So then when it comes to the main topic, and the main topic is explanations in details of the renunciations, bodhicitta, and the wisdom or the view. The wisdom resides in the view or the view, okay? And within each of them, then Lama Tsongkhapa explained with 3 points with each of them, why we need to cultivate each of them, why we need to cultivate renunciation, why we need to cultivate bodhicitta, why we need to cultivate the view, the right view. So with each of those points, and then second, how to cultivate the renunciations, how to cultivate the bodhicitta mind, how to cultivate the wisdom realizing the right view. And then thirdly, the measurement of having cultivated the renunciation. How do we know whether I have cultivated renunciation or not? How do I know whether I have generated the bodhicitta mind or not? How do I know whether I have cultivated the correct understanding or emptiness, the right view? So again, with each of those 3 points, so he explained each of them that. So again, it makes it so easy, 3 points with each of them, So once we study and understand, then you don't have to ask and go to one of the high lamas whether I have bodhicitta mind or not, whether I have wisdom realization, emptiness or not, whether I have a renunciation or not. You don't have to go and ask high lama to do more, or ask his opinions, we will be able to know ourselves by, analyzing, so we can evaluate ourselves. We can with those correct understanding, we can evaluate ourselves whether we have developed those realization or not. So the first in relation to renunciations, so then purpose of generating renunciations, why we need to cultivate the renunciations, why is important to generate the renunciations, the renunciation state of mind, so in relation to that, without complete intentions, definitely to be free from the cycling, So without a strong wish, aspiration, or desire to turn away your mind from the samsara, there's no way to pacify attachment-seeking pleasurable effect in the ocean of cyclics. Without that, without turning away your mind from the samsara and samsaric experience, samsaric pleasure, without turning away your mind from that, then, there's no way to pacify or eliminate the attachments, seeking the samsaric pleasure, seeking temporary pleasure, samsaric pleasure within the samsara, because we're attached to that, Also, by craving to cyclic existence, embodiment beings are continuously bound, and so, and if we don't let go of attachment to the samsara and samsaric experience, samsaric pleasure, and if we continue to be attached to them, then we will be bound and tied up in samsara endlessly. And being tied up in samsara endlessly, we continue to experience the suffering of the samsara day and night. We continue to experience. And therefore, at the very beginning, 6 renunciations. And therefore, at the very beginning, we try to generate the renunciations. So, what is the renunciations? Again, renunciations is a state of mind. It's a state of mind. Renounce mind. Renunciations, renounce mind. Renounce mind, meaning, no attachment. No attachment. No attachment to the samsara, samsaric experience, samsaric pleasure, any of them. That is what the renounced mind means. It's not something external. Do you get it? It's internal. Okay? You can give up everything, you can give up your house, your families, everything, and you can go in remote areas where there's nothing and you have nothing, but still you are attached to reputations that people think you are a good practitioner. That is not renounce. That is not renounce. Because even though you have give up some of the things, still you are attached to certain samsaric things, such as renunciation, such as reputations, good reputation, for example. On other hand, someone might live their life with having a family, having a big house, nice car, nice job, nice, delicious food. It's from outside, seems like that person is not renounced. Do you get it? Seems like from outside, that person seems very unrenounced, very samsaric. But he or she could be very renowned persons. Even though they are in that kind of situation, but they are not attached to any of them, There could be, someone can be non-attached to the families, non-attached to the even though they have car, not attached to the car, even though they have job, they are not attached to the job, even though they have all of that, they might not be attached to that. And when you don't have attached to that, being in that can be a renounce. That person have renunciations because their person has a renounced mind. So that is where we have to make clear renunciations is not external, it's internal. Okay. I think normally in our ordinary vocabulary, when we use renounce in the ordinary word, then it seems like it's more external, you know. He has renounced because he has given up these external things. But here, when we talk from the Dharma point of view, we are talking mainly internal point of view. You know, and there are in some of the commentaries, you know, they give an example of, you know, some of the, like, you know, the 7th Dalai Lama, you know, they give you an example of him. He lived in the Potala Palace, you know, one of the biggest palace you can see, you know, with so much valuable objects, holy objects and so forth. He's served by so many people, you know. So he have all of that. Externally, it seems like a king, you know. But he has no grasping attached to any of those objects. He has no attachment, grasping any of the objects. Even he lives in the midst of all these objects. He's not attached to that. And he even mentioned, you know, the only things that belong to him is his robe, you know, the monk's robe, and some of the his spiritual implements. That's what he always thought, that this is, rest of them he never felt it belonged to him. That just shows that he's not attached to them. He doesn't even think that it belonged to him, you know. So in his mind, he doesn't think it's mine. He thinks it's others. And what he thinks of is his robe and few other small, his religious implements. And so such is example that you can live in the midst of all of that, but you can still be very renounced. On the other hand, you can live without anything externally, but you can be very unrenounced. So I think this is very important us to be clear, because sometimes one of the examples, you know, it reminds me of one of the stories of, you know, there is a stories of one of the practitioners, you know, or one of the persons, you know. He read the Milarepa's biography, you know, and he got so inspired by Milarepa's life and his biography. He got so inspired, and he wanted to live like his life, Milarepa's life. You know, simple, renouncing everything without anything. So he gave up everything, you know, he gave all his wealth, everything he gave to others wherever he needed to give. And he left, you know, and in the mountains, you know, wandering just like Milarepa, you know. So that kind of inspiration came suddenly, you know. It wasn't kind of developed through practice over the time, you know. Do you get it? Sometimes we have that kind of emotion sometimes, you know. Don't you feel sometimes you feel like, oh, you want to leave everything behind and just have nothing, just like Milarepa? How wonderful that life will be. Don't we feel sometimes like that? Because of one moment, you know, one instant, one moment, one situation. It's not like that. You build up slowly through practice and by understanding and build. And such emotional state is unstable. Sometimes we feel also compassion like that, you know. very emotional, momentary. But then it's gone very suddenly. It does not last because those realizations, it didn't come through a continued practice that you build up, like, stone after stone, and making more stable and stable like that. It's just, and so he happened to be like that. And then after some time, he lost that inspirations, after some time, he lost that inspirations. Because it was emotional state in moment. And so he lost that, and now he doesn't want to continue. He feels miserable. He feels miserable being that life, wandering, having nothing. And then he said, not only Milarepa was beggar, he made me beggar. So that is, at the end, that is how he felt. Milarepa has nothing to do it, but now he blamed the Milarepa. Now he blamed the Milarepa. Milarepa has nothing to do it, but that's how we feel it, That's how sometimes we end up like that. So he felt that, then he got so upset because now he has nothing, he gave everything. And now his renunciation is not true. It was just momentary, and now it is gone. And then he started saying and blaming Milarepa, not only Milarepa himself was a beggar, he made me beggar. So we don't want to end up like that, okay? And so in his cases, he didn't understood what the real renunciation is, not understanding what really renunciation is. So that is again, we have to also remember that, and also just like him, we shouldn't be impulsive, sometimes we take decision of being very impulsive because in that moment we feel something strongly. I often hear also some students, oh, this teacher must be, very strongly karmic connection. When the moment I saw, I felt something very special, or tears started coming, or this and that. In some cases it can be, but not all the cases it could be that. Because due to certain cause and conditions, you feel that moment, and then you kind of jump into it without really analyzing, investigating enough, taking the time and analyzing, investigating whether I'm ready to take that person as my teacher or guru, whether that person or teacher is suitable, qualified or not, without analyzing, without analyzing, without investigating. You immediately jump into it because you feel emotionally like that. And later, that emotions is gone, and then you started to see, oh, that teacher is not good, that teacher is not good, he has this fault, this part, that fault. And then we create a lot of, we create a lot of negative karma ourselves. So we have to be, we have to use our intelligence, our wisdom, common sense, that is, important, very important in our spiritual path as well, it's also very important, we just not just jump on the basis of some emotional feeling in that moment. So what is the samsara? Samsara is, our this contaminated aggregate, the contaminated aggregates, our contaminated aggregate that continue to go from one of the realms to another realm within the sixth realm again and again and again. That is what samsara is, That is what samsara is, having no control over that, our aggregates, but that's driven by some other force to take within the sixth realm again and again, again and again, And what is the force, that tied up our aggregate within this state is the karma and the delusions. Is the karma and the delusions. Is the karma and the delusions. And that because our aggregate is induced or generated by the karma and the delusions, and therefore, we don't have total freedom. We don't have total freedom. Our aggregate is controlled by the karma and the delusions. And that itself is a suffering. That itself, not having the freedom, being the slave, being under the control, being the slave of another force, that itself is suffering. Just think about it. If we are prison, if we put in prison, we don't have any freedom. You want to eat now, you cannot eat. You want to go out, you cannot go out. You want to sleep, you cannot sleep. You want to get up, you cannot get up. You want to read, you cannot read. Wouldn't that be a suffering? Wouldn't we consider that a suffering when you have no choice, no control? Someone else is controlling when you should go to the bathroom, when you should eat, when you should drink, when you shouldn't do this and that, or what you should do. Isn't that same, if we apply that, isn't that same how karma and delusion control us? I don't want to get sick, but due to karma and some condition coming together, I have no choice. I get sick. I want to have a good relation to everyone. But again, certain cause and conditions and karma wrapping, then everything started to get bad. Sometimes because from my side, sometimes become other side, sometimes become from both sides, then things get bad in our relationship. Also, we want to have security and good life, good paying job and all of that. We don't want to list, we want to, and we enjoy, but again, things goes wrong. Not because we want, and then again, due to certain cause condition, karma happening, and then things go wrong, and again, we end up in problem and suffering and pain. That is so. That itself, that we have no control at this point. We can have control. We can have control, but at this point, we don't have control. Karma and the delusions have more control over us. So that itself is a suffering, and that is that aggregate, that is control, that is that has been induced and generated from that kind of karma and delusions, is the source of our suffering of change and suffering of pain. Why all other suffering arises, all other pain arises because of such aggregates. If we have aggregate that is not controlled or by the influence of the karma and delusion, then you wouldn't have all these sufferings. The Buddha's aggregate does not produce any suffering of change, any suffering of pain, because their aggregate is not controlled by the delusion karma. But ours aggregates is very much at the moment controlled by that. That is why we have all other problem and pain and sufferings, when certain cause and condition come together. And so that is what it means to be. And so therefore, we should try to generate the wish, instead of being attached, instead of being so attached to such aggregates, instead of being attached to such aggregate and experiences that come from such aggregate, we should try to be not attached to such aggregate and experience that come from those aggregates, you know, and instead we should inspire to free from the bondage of such aggregate and the cause of such aggregate, the karma and the delusions, you know. And so that's mind, you know, that is not attached to any of those aggregate and experience coming from those aggregate. Instead, you know, cultivating the wish to free from all this aggregate and the cause of that such aggregate, the delusion and karma, that thought is the renunciation. That thought is the renunciations. The wish, the aspiration to free from such samsara or such aggregate and the cause of such samsara and aggregate is the renunciation. So, so then in terms of how to generate renunciations, you know, so now we have kind of, before we talk about how to generate renunciations, first we need to know what the renunciation is. So we kind of so we kind of discuss a little bit, you know, maybe not so much time, but a little bit what the really renunciation mean, you know, what really renunciation means, you know, when we hear, when we talk about renunciation, what does it really means? So once we recognize then how to develop the renunciation, how to develop that renounced mind, how to develop that renounced mind is the next step, you know. I don't know, I think maybe today, maybe we'll leave here because I think, so I'm going to open time for some questions so that you can have some time for questions. So please feel, if you have any questions or comments, please feel it from our discussion so far. Don't be shy. Yes, please.
I understand what you were saying, and it's very enlightening to start to think more that way about giving up all the samsara issues and how you have to really try to divorce yourself from those kind of things to move to the next step. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Margaret, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. Could you talk a little bit more about what you mean by aggregate?
Okay. So aggregate, you know, when we think about who we are, whether it's persons, whether it's animal, whatever, beings, sentient beings, you know, they are made of their aggregates. So it is our physical aggregate, our body, in relation to us as a human beings, we are made of 5 aggregates. So it is our body, the physical aggregates, is our feeling aggregates, is made of our feeling, you know, discriminating mind, our mind to be able to distinguish this and that, you know, white, black, gray, whatever, all different things, the discriminating mind, and compositional factors, which are the other 49 mental factors. You know, when you talk about the mind, then we talk about primary mind and 51 mental factors. And so among the 51 mental factors, feeling and discriminating mind of 2 of the mental factors, and the rest of the 49 mental factors is kind of contains within this so-called, we use this word, what was it? Discriminating compositional factors. And then consciousness, the aggregate of consciousness. So that is consciousness aggregate is the primary consciousness. So we are made of those 5 aggregates, so-called we human beings, or as a Geshe-la, it is made of those five things. And so that is what we call those 5 aggregates, you know. And so because my body is a result of my own karma and my own delusions, and as well as all this my, you know, feeling, all these different state of mental factors and mind, they are also a result of my past, you know, karma and the delusions. And so therefore that's our aggregate is. So that is what we call for aggregates. Yeah. So either all 5 aggregates or one of those aggregates, you know. In certain beings, you know, they have only mental aggregates, they don't have physical aggregates, such as in formless God realms, there's only they don't have forms, so they don't have physical aggregates, but they have the mental aggregates. So in that cases, they are made of mental aggregates, but in our cases, we are made of physical and mental aggregates. Yeah. Did that clear your?
Yes, that really helped a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Is it okay to email you a question?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Could somebody
Yeah.
put the email in the chat?
Maybe you could get from Maria, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can facilitate the Geshe-la's email.
Yeah. So I guess if not, then we do the dedications, because I didn't want to start because we have only 5 minutes, and so again, yeah. So we can have the dedication prayers. Yeah. So again, yeah, okay. Due to the merits of those virtuous actions, may I quickly gain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that is not arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Due to all the past, present, future merit collected by me and all the merits of 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of fully enlightened, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. Jigden kamde pende malu ba kangle chungwe sambe yeshe no karin chungme tenzin gyatso la sowa deso tuje lundo sho tuzu changshin jamgun gyave 진정 배외 군소 도고로즈 조선 구에 레모투두 나소도 제군도 샤텐쇼. So thank you very much, everyone. So again, during this 1 week, you can contemplate on what we just discussed. Maybe next week, maybe you have already renounced. Not the one who blamed the Milereba, okay? Not that way, okay? But from your heart, okay? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
so much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.